Now, our main topic of discussion for this episode is Sony. So Sony rolled out the newest PlayStation 4 system update, 8.00. Some of the changes were relatively good, and some of them have brought on a little bit of controversy. Now, among the new changes in the update is the ability for a third-party app like a Google Authenticator to enable a two-factor authentication to sign in. The others included Parental Controls and a host of new avatars. Probably the most important is the Parental Controls. It essentially allows parents control over which games their children use in chat, and the child can request permission from their parents, and the parents can allow their child to chat and view user-generated content in that particular game. Another, and admittedly less welcome part of the update is the adjustments it's made to sort of combine parties and messages. This is similar to Discord. If anybody here uses Discord, works pretty similar with this new update. Normally, when you start a new party, you must start a new group. There is no just creating parties or inviting particular friends over anymore. You have to have a group message chat from which you can launch a party. So, for example, you have a group of chat of 2 friends, and you guys all play together regularly, and you wanted to play with someone else. Like, let's say you wanted to go play Warzone. So they wanted an invite. Well, you can't do that with the new party system. Instead, you have to create basically a new group with that friend in it, so all 3 of you are included in order to start a party. It's sort of a needless hassle if you're not used to it, but Sony went ahead and put it in quotes. Now you can start a party chat or send a message to the group you've previously chatted with across PS4, as well as on PS5 when it launches. Now, from my perspective, because I'm pretty familiar with Discord, this is sort of how it works. It seems like a good idea to keep record and keep group chats and friend groups separate, and it just makes things all more convenient. Right now it's going to seem like a hassle because it's new and it's just one more thing you got to do, but for the long term, it might be for the best, and it might be able to keep people closer. Anyways, so lots of users are reporting that the update has broken some of their friends list though, which isn't a huge surprise. Updates can pretty much break anything, and they're kind of random. I mean, updates can be patchy, especially on release. PS4 users are also pointing out a new notification that says Sony will record your voice chat in a party for moderation, which sounds alarming but isn't so new. New PS4 updates now are generally understood to be indications of what to expect from PS5, and after all, the release of the latter consoles is so close, one would surmise Sony is trying to prep players who bought it to make the transition. But we'll see how more features roll out in the meantime. We still got about a month until the PS5 launches. So the first thing that PlayStation 4 users who downloaded the latest 8.00 update are greeted with, they get a message whenever they try to create a new party. It's called "Voice chats may be recorded for moderation. By joining, you agree to being recorded." There's also an official party safety update or information that is stated to say, "We want PlayStation Network to be fun for everyone, which is why we have a community code of conduct. Please be aware that voice chats in parties may be recorded and sent to us by other users. By participating in voice chats, you agree to your voice being recorded. When behaviors that violate the community code of conduct are reported, PlayStation Safety will review the reports to check if there has been genuine violations. These recordings will be used only for safety and moderation purposes by PlayStation Safety." Essentially, Twitter read both of these and started to freak out, especially because the initial updated release notes contain no mention of voice recordings. But at some point today, Sony clarified that the message is meant in an update to its official blog post. The exact Sony language is as follows: "Following this update, users are seeing notifications about party safety and that the voice chats in party may be reported. Voice chat recording for moderation is a feature that will be available on PS5 when it launches, and will enable users to record their voice chats on PS5 and submit them for moderation review. The pop-up you're seeing on PS4 right now is to let you know that when you participate in a chat with a PS5 user, in quotes, post-launch, they may submit those recordings from their PS5 console to the safety, Sony safety. Now, it seems that by joining a voice chat, even with the older PS4, your voice can be recorded and submitted to Sony by moderation by another user. People are considering this to be invasive, and in theory, anything you say in a voice chat could be sent to Sony without your explicit consent. But the feature could also be a useful tool to help people report bad party members that may be harassing them. And based on Sony's language, it doesn't really seem that Sony is actively listening to all of your conversations you're hearing or you're having with your pals during your latest round of like COD. Now this coincides with their other move, getting ready for the PS5's launch, where they essentially rebranded the PS4 Remote Play mobile, Mac, and PC apps to a PS Remote Play, and you'll be able to use that app to connect to your PS5 when the new console launches next month. I wanted to go ahead and give my initial thoughts on this. I'm big into privacy and fear of people recording you without your consent and pretty much all of this kind of stuff. However, on a personal note, I can understand where PlayStation's coming from as a business, at least with, I'll talk from personal experience of PlayStation users. This is a pretty rough example, but COD in general. COD's cross-platform, I play that pretty casually on PC, and I play with Xbox players and I play with PS4 players. What I've noticed, and this is just me being an old guy that's been through the early days of Xbox Live and open chat, open proximity voice, and like Halo 2 and lobby chats and Halo 3 and COD and Modern Warfare 2, stuff like that way back in the day. I feel as though PS4 users are going through the period of high toxicity that Xbox players went through with the original Xbox and the Xbox 360. Now, I say that because when you get on Xbox One now, there's still toxicity, but it's not as bad. Most people, from my experience playing something like Halo, Forza, FIFA, Madden, all these other really, really popular games I can go on, but they're usually, those player base are already in party chats and they kind of just keep to themselves. They have their own little community. They don't really branch out much. It's kind of hard to actually like make friends on Xbox now because it's so like people are solidified in how they're comfortable, which is kind of like an introvert kind of style, whereas PlayStation is sort of that open chat, open proximity voice. The lobbies are highly toxic and there's no like push to talk on the mics. And what I've found in my experience is that when I match with people that are PS4 users and Xbox users, the PS4 users are typically live mics, constantly yelling, being super toxic. It's usually a younger base, and I think that might have to do with the initial PS4 versus Xbox One like war that kind of went off, like the console wars that happened when they both launched at the same time, and how you can't really say anyways. I mean, PS4 essentially won that, and I think they won the younger base. But I have no statistical analysis or numbers to back this up. I'm just talking about from my personal experience. That's what I can kind of see Sony doing, and they realize this is really toxic. And so they're saying, okay, well, if it gets as bad as people are being racist or threatening to kill someone, insane harassment level toxicity, they're giving their players the ability to hold others accountable by recording them and then sending them to reports. Essentially being like, hey, this person's harassing me. And then they're like, where's your proof? Oh, here's a recorded clip. Check it out. And then that person's insta banned. And eventually you're going to ban enough toxic people that it's going to change the perception of gaming on their consoles and on their platforms so that there will be less toxicity. But for now, people are going to view it as if it's an invasion of their rights. Because this was such a new update and there was no mention of this prior, and it was kind of a surprise to a lot of the users, PlayStation was essentially forced, or Sony was essentially forced into creating some type of blog post or a notification to especially address the privacy concerns that arose from the announcement. They essentially promised PS4 users that the feature only aims to reduce cyberbullying and misconduct, and they have no intentions on recording live or current party chat comms or communications. Now, clarifying on the issue, PlayStation representative Catherine Jensen said they aim to reduce the verbal abuse and harassment that happens online and on the consoles. Therefore, they are planning to introduce a voice chat report function on the PS5. Talking about the purpose of this feature, she said, its sole purpose is to help in reporting of inappropriate behavior, including actions that violate their community code of conduct. And as a disclaimer, she also added, please note that this feature will not actively monitor or listen in on your conversations, ever, and it's strictly reserved for reporting online abuse or harassment. She continues, once the PS5 console launches, if a PS5 player needs to file a harassment report, they will be able to include up to a 40-second long video chat clip in their report. 20 seconds of the main conversation with the other player, plus an additional 10 seconds before and after the conversation selection. Only the most recent 5 minutes of a voice chat will be available for a player to use for reporting this function. The blog also mentioned that keeping the safety of players in mind, the feature of mandatory. Hence, players can't turn it off. With regards to this, Catherine said, there won't be an option to opt out of this voice chat recording function because we want all users to feel safe while playing with others online, not just those who choose to enable it. She continued and essentially apologized on behalf of PlayStation for the announcement being somewhat ambiguous, and she agreed that they shouldn't have made such a sensitive announcement without following it up with the proper clarification. However, the recent posts should be enough to assure users about the voice chat reporting. So one of the main reasons why this is our main story. Sony is essentially recording not your party chat with private communication that you have in messages with your friends. That's pretty much already been recorded in texting format, not necessarily voice. This also goes for Xbox and possibly Steam or Epic Games, whatever type of PC launcher you have. But in general, this is recording your voice game audio. So when you're communicating within your game, it's gonna be really interesting to see how this is like implemented in the gaming industry. It'll be interesting to see if Xbox actually goes and implements something similar to this with the Xbox Series X. But for the most part, from my perspective, from trying to keep the gaming industry less toxic, especially when it comes to, I'm talking about like outlandish toxicity, not your average, just give somebody a little bit of crap, like for not making a good play and just saying like, oh yeah, you suck, man, I'm better than you. It's like not that. Like I'm talking about deep personal stuff where you're attacking somebody's sex or religion or name or culture or race or whatever that, like, I think you understand what I'm saying here. And I think it's going to be able to hold people accountable and hopefully make gaming more inviting to people that are not really in the culture. Like I've said on several of these podcasts, gaming culture is still a niche. It hasn't really broken out into the mainstream. I mean, it has, but it hasn't. It's like you got normies who play apps on their phone, but they don't consider that gaming. It's like you play Candy Crush like 12 hours a day. You're kind of a gamer in a way, but they won't admit that. They're just like, oh, it's just something I do. You need people to accept it. You understand what I'm saying? So if you can make it less toxic, I think it's going to be overall good for the industry. It's going to make people more inviting to join of all races, ethnicities, and sexes. And I think that's just good overall for the broader gaming community. It's going to be really interesting to see how the overall community embraces this. If they do embrace it, I'm sure Twitter is a firestorm over this, probably claiming that Sony is using mass surveillance to steal all our data and sell it to corporations. But really what they're trying to do is just like, hey, just stop saying the N-word in a COD lobby. Like, come on, man. What's the matter with you? Grow up. This isn't 1962. What's wrong with you?